Gonna take you for a ride in my brand new car. My brand new car, my brand new car. Gonna take you for a ride in my brand new car. My brand new car, my brand new car. Gonna show you how the shifter feels, 'cause tonight is the night that we make it real.
What a beautiful town, Milan. Here a friend can join you to propose a bike ride. In an instant you take the metro from home, choose a station from which to start pedaling, and in no time at all you find yourself at your destination.
Gonna take you for a ride in my brand new car. You better hold on to the leather and thread, 'cause we're gonna take off like a thoroughbred. Gonna take you for a ride in my brand new car.
And this is how Paolo and I arrived at the Seattle-Tacoma station and started the dancing. Once we put the lucky beer cap in its place, we can begin our American blues. A journey that will take us, once we reach the West Coast, to cycle for 1,800 kilometers until we cross the Golden Bridge in San Francisco on 2 wheels. It's true that we are west of the Rocky Mountains, but with 18,000 meters of overall difference in altitude, the route is certainly very nervous. We start a few kilometers south of the Canadian border, where we find a nice temperature, almost summer. Pedaling for the first kilometers on little-traveled roads, interrupted only by a few level crossings, that, if by chance you get there at the wrong time, you should first look for a diner where you can have breakfast while waiting for the last carriage to pass. Having quickly crossed the bridge that crosses the Columbia River, after just 2 days we change state. Out of Washington we enter Oregon, and in no time we meet the shores of the Pacific Ocean. And here we immediately pass through the Capri of the state of Oregon, the city of Cannon Beach. If you look closely, there are stacks and the beach is very popular. However, there are no bathers. It will be due to the stiff and frozen wind from the north, and obviously also the water. We are at the end of July, in the middle of summer. But here in the morning, the mercury on the thermometer does not rise above 10 degrees and reaches 15 in the afternoon. The tsunami warning sign reminds us that from here to the St. Andre in Los Angeles, the area is at risk of earthquakes. And since the signs are frequent, we can only hope that the journey proceeds without unpleasant surprises. If the coastal panorama is pleasant to look at for those who observe it from the road, in reality this coast is dangerous and treacherous for the sailor, scattered as it is with an endless number of outcropping rocks and small islands, and what's more, with a shallow seabed. As if that wasn't enough, the formation of sudden and dense banks of fog is also frequent here. You can distribute high-powered headlights along the coast, but the light struggles to pierce the fog. And over the centuries, this stretch of ocean has witnessed a long series of shipwrecks. It is said that a ship loaded with paint ran aground disastrously. The cargo was looted in the following days, and the town in front of the silted ship, I will not mention the name for reasons of privacy, found itself entirely painted in bright colors in the following weeks. After crossing another bridge, you come across the town of Yakats, 1,000 inhabitants and only one place to sleep. And also just one place to have breakfast in the morning, obviously a McDonald's. No way, junk food for today too. But at least the hot black American coffee gives you that energy to continue pedaling towards the south, following, without the possibility of error, the only coastal road, number 101, which here is called the Oregon Coast Bike Route. The outside temperature, despite having already descended several hundred kilometers south, remains chilly, that hybrid between late autumn and winter. But evidently in these parts it must be the norm, taking a quick look at the few creatures who find it pleasant to bathe here. The route along the Pacific coast of the United States has always been a desire of mine, which for various reasons I have always had to postpone over the years. Okay, The climate may not be exactly Mediterranean, but let's face it, as far as the view is concerned, you can't honestly complain. It's Paolo who can't understand why the number of umbrellas and swimmers on these beaches is practically zero. But in the end, it was enough to put a foot in the water to immediately understand why. Along the 1,800 kilometers that separate Seattle from San Francisco, the number of cities overlooking the ocean, let's say at least of a certain importance, is practically zero. If anything, it is easier to encounter inhabited centers for which even the term village would seem to be excessive, often counting a few hundred inhabitants. And the coastal road, despite being counted among the highways, has very limited traffic. And it must be said that the presence of bicycles is not only tolerated, but also permitted by law. And the few cars we pass during the day, respectfully, keep the right distance from our wheels. Very pleasant and very safe. Precisely in one of these tiny coastal villages, when it's time to eat something, in the only cafe available in the town, we have a pleasant demonstration of the typical hospitality of the American Far West.
Molto buono. Gustoso. Thank you.
Guarda.
Ah però,
Questo non mi era ancora capitato.
veramente.
Che carino.
Past the states of Washington and Oregon, we still have to travel through California to our destiny, the city of San Francisco. The weather remains unchanged and the windproof jackets are placed in the backpack, and not always, only after midday. The road now moves away from the coast, moving decidedly further east towards the interior. Those that appear in the distance are the first reliefs of the Rocky Mountains. I'm only saying this for completeness of information. They are not part of our travel program. For us, for this time, in terms of altitude differences, it is already too much for this trip. We begin pedaling in the middle of a succession of tall coniferous forests, and for some time we pedal sheltered from the wind, which in recent days had never stopped blowing along the coast. These woods tell us that we are approaching one of the most suggestive points of the route, the Redwood National Park. The Californian Redwood Park is always crossed by Highway 101, which here takes the name of Avenue of the Giants. It is one of over 60 national parks in the USA. The Californian redwood forest once covered 800,000 hectares between the coast and the hinterland. But when the park was established in 1968, 90% of the trees had already been cut down. It is inevitable to ask ourselves what this territory must have been like in ancient times, since, even so, it really makes an impression on us.
Sergio,
Ehi,
tronchi che hanno migliaia d'anni.
Paolo, ma che razza di mani tieni? Vediamo che sennò ci fan causa qua.
However, let it not occur to anyone to say that it is all our fault. Forecasts promise northerly winds of between 15 and 20 knots for the next few days, which means wind blowing from behind in which you should feel a lot when pedaling along the ocean. And for once the weather forecast is correct. Correct and pleasant, given that the hourly average is affected in a decidedly positive way. The panorama for hundreds of kilometers remains apparently unchanged, with a long series of bays, inlets, and emerging rocks. But it certainly cannot be said to be monotonous. For tonight in Mendocino County, we stop at Fort Bragg. 300 kilometers to go to the Golden Bridge. The whole area that now we have to cross is made up of a contiguous group of marine protected areas, each of which can easily be seen as a sanctuary. We are talking about a 1,000-kilometer stretch of coastline, centered approximately on San Francisco, characterized by the presence of the California current. a frozen current of the Pacific Ocean, constantly at 14 degrees, moving southward, starting off southern British Columbia and ending off the coast of Baja California. All these successions of bays are included in the list of protected areas, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. At the moment, there are 47 in the world, and this one in particular is called the California Current Conservation Complex. A true paradise for cyclists, but above all, a true paradise for fish, whales, sea lions, and birds. A moment, coffee break, and let's continue. It's time to move inland along the Napa Valley, famous for its vineyards and the production of Californian wines. We thus take the road that takes us directly to the Golden Bridge. Fantastic. Kilometers and kilometers in total absence of traffic. Of course, there is no traffic on the road. It was blocked by construction work in progress, and luckily the employees who took pity on it didn't send us back and let us pass. And finally, the waters of San Francisco Bay appear, and following the banks shortly after in the distance, the large city where the journey ends. There are still some obstacles missing. First, the steep climb that leads to the entrance to the Golden Bridge, and then crossing it. And that's where Mark Twain's words come to mind. The coldest winter I remember was a summer in San Francisco. An icy wind and a temperature of 9 degrees accompanies us to the end of the bridge. We return home, but not before having wasted an afternoon wandering around Pier 39, the nightlife area of the city, and where the kids must have seen some film about the padlocks on the Milvio Bridge in Rome, and where, for a long time, a group of noisy seals found a home right there in front of the exit from the port, and from where in the distance you can observe the Alcatraz prison in the harbor, from where no one has ever escaped, they say, but in reality perhaps it is not entirely true. We'd like to celebrate with a cold beer, but given the climate, we're happy with a long, black, hot American coffee. Between us, for us Italians, real rubbish. But for this time, it goes like this.